Good afternoon, family. Once again, it's your DC dude. If you are already a subscriber to this channel, then welcome back. However, if you are new to this channel, I recommend that you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can stay in the know about where we're going to go. So, family, we find ourselves already sitting on March 1st, 2023. It seems that January and February are already history. And speaking of history, you know that's what I love to talk about. Last month, February, of course, is designated Black History Month. It went by so quickly for me that I only was able to produce one Black History video. But the good news is today, March 1st, begins Women's History Month. So I thought we would get out here on the very first day of March to get Women's History Month off to a good start. So today, family, we find ourselves on the corner of 50th Street and Nannie Helen Burroughs Avenue in it was considered the far northeast quadrant of Washington, D.C. So on this corner of 50th Street and Nannie Helen Burroughs Avenue, northeast Washington, D.C., there's a historic entryway right behind me, and it's labeled Progressive National Baptist Convention. So D.C. dude, what does that have to do with Women's History Month? Well, once upon a time, there was a school on a hill that was named after the very same person that this avenue was named after. That's right, Nannie Helen Burroughs. Sure, I knew the avenue, once Dean Avenue, spelled with an E, in Northeast DC, that was renamed after her. And a quick sidebar, does anybody know exactly when the avenue was renamed? If so, please enlighten us in the comments. And not to get too far off topic, but it threw me off back then for a minute when they renamed it because I grew up in that area. And so to go from an avenue with only one word and one syllable in his name, like Dean, to now 3 words and each word having 2 syllables, well, like I said, threw me off. And to add to that, I had no idea who she was. Anyway, I digress. So in addition to knowing her avenue namesake, I also knew of the school on the hill off the corner of 50th Street in Lincoln Heights, also sharing a name that I didn't know anything about, other than my best friend went there. But over the years, as the history of D.C., particularly the area east of the Anacostia River, began to interest me more and more, I would eventually learn just how incredible she really was. She was born in Orange, Virginia on May 2nd, 1879 to John and Jenny Burroughs. Like many in the generations before her, Nannie's parents were both once enslaved people who, through determination, would work their way to freedom. Her father, John, went on to become a farmer and a Baptist church preacher. From these humble beginnings, Miss Burroughs went on to be an educator, orator, religious leader, civil rights activist, feminist, and businesswoman. Her life was one of grit, persistence, and undying passion for teaching racial pride, respectability, and work ethics to African American women during a time when they were barely recognized as even being human. Harsh, but real. In 1883, at the age of 4 years old, her mother relocated her here in D.C. to live with her aunt for better employment and educational opportunities. She would eventually attend M Street High School that was founded in 1870 as the Preparatory High School for Negro Youth, which, by the way, was the beginnings of Dunbar High School. There she studied business and domestic science. She also organized the Harriet Beecher Stokes Literary Society. Along the way, she would befriend Anne J. Cooper, who was among the most prominent African American scholars in the United States and 21 years her senior. Also, while at M Street High School, she would befriend Mary Church Terrell, 16 years her senior, who was one of the first African American women to earn a college degree and known as a national activist for civil rights and suffrage. Mary Church Terrell taught in the Latin department at M Street High School. So Nannie graduated from M Street High School with honors in 1896. Later in 1908, she received an honorary Master's of Art degree from Eckstein Norton University, an historically black college in Cane Springs, Kentucky. Seeking work upon graduation in D.C. as a domestic science teacher, she was faced with adversity. It was said that she couldn't get a position because her skin complexion was too dark, as it was evident during that time that lighter skinned teachers were preferred. She ended up having to move altogether, getting a position as a secretary for the National Baptist Convention's paper in Philadelphia. The paper was called the Christian Banner. Later, from 1898 to 1909, she worked in Louisville, Kentucky, as an editorial secretary and bookkeeper of the Foreign Mission Board of the National Baptist Convention. And it's worth noting that Miss Burroughs had no problem traveling to wherever opportunity led her. I mean, D.C., Cane Springs, Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, Philadelphia. Well, you get my point. With the help of the National Baptist Convention, in 1909, she would establish what was then called the National Training School for Women and Girls in D.C. Money for the school was primarily raised by African American women, along with the assistance of a white women's Baptist Mission Society. The emphasis of the school was what she referred to as the 3 B's: the Bible, the bath, and the broom. These represented a clean life, a clean body, and a clean house. Founded in a small farmhouse, the school had 31 students in the first 2 years and would eventually attract over 2,000 students from all over the nation. It was the first school in the nation to provide vocational training for African American females who did not otherwise have many educational opportunities available to them. And what was ironic here is that she ended up teaching domestic science at her own school, the same thing she couldn't get a job doing in D.C. because of her dark skin complexion. She also taught skills that were non-traditional for women back then, like printing, barbering, and shoe repair. Many people disagreed with her teaching women skills that did not apply to domestic housework, but nevertheless, the students kept coming. She also set a landmark precedent by creating a mandatory Negroes history course to her curriculum, which was not only unheard of back then, but is still experiencing pushback to this very day. Florida! Whew, excuse me. Where was I? Prior to establishing the school, she gave a speech entitled How the Sisters Are Hindered from Helping. They gave her national recognition and fame. Also, in addition to her role at the school, she fought for equal rights for African American women and opportunities for women beyond domestic housework. The school was named a National Landmark in 1981. The 1928 Trades Hall building, the oldest building on the campus, was declared a National Historic Landmark in 1991. The former Nannie Helen Burroughs School property consisted of 6 acres. There are 4 buildings on the hilly campus, of which the 1928 Trades Hall is the furthest east. The largest building in the group is a school building built in 1971 that now houses the Monroe School, as just mentioned. The Trades Hall houses the offices of the Progressive Baptist National Conference. At least as far as I know. I invite you to leave it in the comments if you know any different to enlighten us to see if they're still there. The building was constructed between 1927 and 1928, and Mary McLeod Bethune was the featured speaker at its dedication. The school closed briefly in 1953, but resumed operation. Nannie Helen Burroughs ran the school until her death in 1961 at the age of 82. And in 1964, it was renamed in her honor. Today, her legacy is continued by the Monroe School, Inc., which operates in the 1971 school building on the campus, as mentioned. Nannie Helen Burroughs was buried at the 19th Street Baptist Church, where she was a member. The 19th Street Baptist Church was established way back in 1839, considered the oldest African-American church in D.C., and still exists to this day, 184 years later. Today, they are located at 4606 16th Street Northwest, way uptown on what I call Church Row. Walter Washington declared May 10th, Nannie Helen Burroughs Day. Wow. Didn't I tell you she was incredible? That's why I dub her the Lioness of Lincoln Heights. That might sound familiar because Frederick Douglass was dubbed the Lion of Anacostia. I think it's a fair comparison, right? Because she gave us examples to live by that apply even to this day. For example, she taught us that when doors close on us, we can build our own doors. Because when she was denied that teaching job for domestic science in Washington, D.C., she created her own doors, built her own school, and taught what she wanted to teach. Also, she taught us that how something as simple as the written word can be immensely powerful. When she wrote that speech called How the Sisters Are Hindered from Helping. That ignited her career and gave her fame and recognition that ultimately led to her success. And she also taught us that no matter how humble your beginnings are or how high you think the rules are stacked up against you, she taught us that wherever there's a will, there's a way. Well, family, I'm afraid it's that time again to bring this to a close. But meanwhile, family, you never know where we're going to end up next. So if you want to ride, just click on subscribe.